before, so I'm sure I'll get comfortable with it soon. Right, yes, I'm going to take you on a voyage through the stars, navigating the tech galaxy for early stage startups. Or can I move that around? Yeah, maybe just a bit about me to start. So I've been working in technology for about 24 years now. Most of that has been in startups and scale-ups. I spent about half of that time as a software engineer of various sorts, and then half of that time leading technology for a couple of places there. So 7 Digital and Masabi with some scale-ups in London, and then more recently, when I moved to Manchester, not so startup-y, the Co-op and then Money Supermarket. But yeah, for a while now, after working in Money Supermarket and Co-op, I was feeling I was quite keen to get back into startups. So I'm now working as a products and technology strategy advisory consultant for startups and scale-ups. The fashionable term for it now is a fractional CPTO or CTO. I'm not a huge fan of that word, but that's what it is. I'm also on the board for the digital strategy for Manchester City Council with Sherelle, who you heard from earlier, which is fantastic. I'm a coach for Baltic Ventures' new accelerator in Liverpool, which is a really exciting new thing if you haven't heard about that already. And I also mentor some startups on the Exchange program, which is in Bonded Warehouse down the road. So where do we start? So this is your sort of typical journey as an early stage startup. You have an idea, you've got an itch for a problem to solve. Right, okay, what do I do with that? Do some market research. Go and find out if there's an addressable market. Is there something not only that I want to solve, but I can actually make a business out of? Go and validate the idea. Go and do user research and other things like that to speak to potential users. Build your MVP, or your minimum viable product. Launch your MVP, and then iterate. But I see loads of common pitfalls, unfortunately. Building too soon. Building too much, building it wrong, being beholden to your tech partner, especially if you're a non-technical founder, and unfortunately, having to start again. I've heard 2 examples of this week alone. Do you really need to build something yet? Founders often jump too quickly into thinking they have to go and build something, without having actually a clear, focused idea of the problem you're going to solve. You have your idea, but have you defined your proposition? Who are your users? What are you going to solve for them? And as humans, we're all really vulnerable to something called confirmation bias, which is we believe we already know all the answers, and we selectively focus on the information that reinforces that. And the key here, actually, is not to jump in too quickly. And somewhat ironically, as a technologist, I spend a lot of my time telling people not to build things. And it's not enough time at this stage. So it's all about testing your thinking without building something. And critically, it's really cheap and really quick and easy to do comparatively to actually going out and building it. So conduct user research, do market research, do low-fidelity prototypes. So there's great tools like Figma or Marvel, where you can actually get sort of click, but they won't actually work, but you can sort of click through the idea of an application with customers. Airbnb started just as a web page with a form where you could add your email address. And remember, again, this is quick and comparatively easy to do. Do you really need all those features? Oh, no. So define your minimum viable product. Sorry. So this is your next stage. You've done that, and this is really important. Who is your target audience? Identify your potential users, their demographics, understand their habits and preferences, and pain points. There's a really great framework called the Jobs to be Done framework, JTBDF, I think, if you search for it, which is really good for this. What's your problem statement? Clearly define what your MVP is going to solve. What's your unique value proposition? What is going to differentiate you from what's already out there on the market? What's your core features? And this really should just be the most essential things that you need to have to be able to go and test this minimum viable product. The user flows, what's the journey for the users as they're going to be able to get through your proposition? And very importantly is those key success metrics. So how are you actually going to measure that your minimum viable product is succeeding or not? Do you really need all those features? I'm going to keep coming back to this. Minimum viable product. It is the absolute minimum. I'm working with a lot of startups. They're even kind of pre-going live, and they've built half of the things that are just kind of add-ons that might be really helpful for their application or proposition later on, but are just not needed. And it really clouds it when you're going to go out there and test it, because for your users, there's all this other stuff that are not necessarily relevant. Do you really need to build something yet? Perhaps not. There are more and more ways to build a working prototype or even a real version of your proposition without needing developers. This no-code ecosystem, I'm not really a fan of the word no-code. Some of these do actually require a bit of coding. It's full of services which you can glue together, which you can quickly test your assumptions with a friendly audience. And actually, I know some startups that are actually using Bubble to take it to their full MVP. Do you really need to build something yet? Well, perhaps yes. You've now defined your MVP. You've genuinely gone out there and tested as much as you can through those methods that you can do these things quite quickly. And you now just need to launch something properly. This is a critical stage. It's a big investment and a big commitment, and this is where I am seeing a lot of people getting tripped up. And what is really important here is you don't want to have to end up throwing it all away. And if you're lucky enough to be able to afford to do so, starting again. So you need to get some help. Unless you're actually a developer, you're going to have to kind of find someone to come and help you. Here's just some examples of different approaches that you can take. There may be others. But in all these cases, you're beholden to them. How do you know if they're doing a good job? Visibly, by seeing the output. So you're actually seeing your proposition come to life on a website or in a mobile application. But what's under the hood matters just as much. And it's about knowing what to ask for. Using common technology. Your proposition might be bleeding edge, but you don't want the tech to be. Go with well-known, battle-tested technologies. It'll be easier to find people to work on them, and then there's lots of industry knowledge out there if you run into any issues. This is just an example stack of some very common technologies, and if it was, there are others, so don't say that these are the only ones that you can go with. But these are all just been around for a long time. And don't build what you can get off the shelf. These are examples of SaaS platforms for commodity parts of any application, which you really shouldn't be trying to build yourself. They'll build it better than you, cheaper than you, and critically, it's going to be less code for you to maintain. There's plenty of others. These are ones that I've used before and been really successful with, but something like AWS Cognito for identity, rather than creating your own login, it's going to be much more secure. It's going to have much more future compatibility if you want to bring in social login and things like that. There are plenty of others. But probably pretty much every startup that I've been working with over the last few months seems to have built their own CMS, their content management platform, when there are just tools that can do this for you. And nicely these days, these integrate in really nicely, so it's not like it controls the front end and the back end. They're called headless platforms. Own all your own stuff, your hosting environments, all your tools and platforms, your source code and your IP. My goodness, 2 examples in the last few weeks where the intellectual property was not declared to be in the ownership of the company itself, and it's really important here because actually if it's not written down, the law will lean to the fact that it's with the creator. And this is not just about having a login to these things, you need to own them. I've seen startups where partners just own their entire infrastructure, all of their tools and platforms. They don't have access to their own source code. You're one payment dispute away from owning nothing. And if your partner isn't working out, it's very difficult to move to someone else. Automated build, test, and deployment. It's getting a little bit technical now, but actually this is a really important one for me. Automated testing, so you don't have to test it manually. Automated deployment, so you can literally make a code change at 10 o'clock in the morning. It can be in your live environment by 10:30. Logging and monitoring and alerting, so when things do go live into production, you can actually see what's happening, both with the behavior of your customers, but also if there's a bug, you can quickly identify it and fix it. And this has a term in the industry, it's called continuous delivery. So if you're going to be talking to a partner about coming to help you, are you going to write automated tests? Are you going to put it in automated deployment? Do you understand continuous delivery? And this is one of these reasons why. So there's all these things that are really quick and easy to do. Your idea, you go out there, it's fast and quick to find out if there's something there and doing that market research and user research. Building your MVP goes a bit more slowly. But you're seeing features arrive, and it's really exciting. And then you launch, and then things start really going down and going more slowly. Bugs appear. You've got live customers now. Because you don't have this automation in place, it takes ages to fix it. You as a founder, every time your partner is making a change, are literally spending hours going through and testing the application, when you really need to be focusing on building your business. And then they try and fix one bug, and it creates another bug. And you're just going round in circles. It's all really quick before you've got customers on your platform, but now it starts really slowing down. And critically, a lot of these things are really easy to get started with earlier on, but once you're live, the effort to improve it and get into that state gets exponentially harder. And typically, unfortunately, what I'm doing is going in and helping them get control of this stuff and get it into a better place. Because the only way to solve this is in your investment round, is hiring more people, which is tons more money that you have to go and ask for. If you get all this kind of automation in place, you need less people. And do you really need all these features? So the way why I'm saying this again is because you might think these are nice to have kind of have the quality in your infrastructure and things like that. And there's always trade-offs. It comes back to not building as much stuff in the first place, particularly when it comes to your MVP. Minimum viable product. Because once you go live, you're likely going to need to pivot. Because what you often find is what you thought customers are going to like is not what you thought. And so you're going to need to move on, and you're going to need to make changes. Getting to that point where your MVP is live is just the beginning. You're at this stage now. And even if it's not the case you need to do a big pivot, you're going to be getting all that feedback from your customers and your users about what they like and what they don't like. And it's all about how you respond to that to be able to keep testing your proposition and improving it. Build, measure, and learn. It is getting into this phase. And it doesn't matter if you're an early stage startup or a large enterprise organization, you're always taking this experimental approach. And you want these fast feedback loops to be able to validate any changes that you're making. Minimum viable product. You've defined your MVP. You have that ruthless focus, clear product proposition. You have your key metrics to help you validate this stuff around it. And then build, measure, learn. You have a technology platform which supports being able to make quick, iterative changes and provide feedback to what customers are doing. And a few last words around this is smaller is better. Make small changes, develop small code bases, only build what you absolutely need to, and which results in needing fewer people and smaller teams, and keeping it lean. And if there's one book I like to recommend to anybody who's going on this journey, it's The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. It doesn't cover so much of the technical stuff here, but it really does push that focus on doing the absolute minimum and that build, measure, learn process. Thank you very much. Hope that was useful.